Hello everyone, this is example 3 of multiplying and dividing rational expressions. In example 3, we're going to use multiplication of rational expressions, and we're going to have some trinomials here. I have a trinomial in the numerator of the first fraction and a trinomial in the denominator of the second fraction. Now I know I have binomials here, but that's okay. The main thing is I have trinomials. Now, the first step, just like in the previous example, is to factor. So we're going to factor everything that is factorable. So, to factor a trinomial, I check what multiplies to give me the last term, but adds to give me the middle term. So what numbers multiply to give me -3, but add to give me +2? Well, that would be +3 times -1. That gives me -3, but adds to give me +2. So that means my factors are x minus 3. There's my -3. Sorry, +3, +3. Times x minus 1. So remember, my numbers were +3 and -1. So here's +3 and -1. Over, and in the denominator, I can factor a 4. So I'm going to put 4 times x plus 8 divided by 4 is 2 times, no change on the x plus 2. The x plus 2 is not factorable, so we're going to leave it alone. Now in the denominator, once again, I have a trinomial, so I need to check what multiplies to give me 3 but adds to give me -4. Well, that would be -3 times -1. So my factors are going to be x minus 3 times x minus 1. Here's my -3 and my -1. -3 times -1 is a +3, and -3 plus -1 is a -4. And now, just like before, we reduce. We check where we can reduce. So here I have x plus 3, and notice there is no x plus 3 in the denominator, so x plus 3 does not reduce. Here I have an x minus 1. And here I have an x minus 1 in the denominator. So both of these are going to reduce. So I'm left with 1 here and with 1 here. Next, I have an x plus 2. And notice I also have an x plus 2 in the denominator. So both of those are going to reduce, and we're going to be left with 1. Nothing reduces with 4, and nothing reduces with x minus 3. Now, I know I have an x plus 3, but x minus 3 is a different factor, so those do not reduce. They're going to stay. So now we simplify. X plus 3 times 1 is just going to be x plus 3 in the numerator. In the denominator, I have 4 times 1, which is just 4, times 1 in the numerator over x minus 3 times 1 is going to be x minus 3. And now we multiply across. We're going to say x plus 3 times 1. Well, that's just going to be x plus 3. And in the denominator, we have 4 times x minus 3. We can keep that factored. We can just say 4 parentheses x minus 3. And that is okay. So this is our product. This is our reduced product. Hello, here we have example 4 of multiplication and division of rational expressions. We are going to continue with multiplication, and we have a trinomial here and some binomials, but mainly we are going to be using the factoring of trinomials. And this time our leading coefficient is not 1. So when we factor, we're going to have a few more steps. Now, in order to factor this first polynomial, I need to do a chart. I need to find numbers that multiply to give me the product of 9 times -4, which is -36, but adds to give me what would be the middle term of a trinomial. There is no x term here. We go from x squared to just a number, so that middle term here would be 0. So numbers that multiply to give me 36 but add to give me 0 would be -6 times +6. And then -6 plus 6 is indeed 0. Now we're going to do the same thing for 5x squared minus 3x minus 14. We're going to find numbers that multiply to give the product of 5 times negative 14, which would be negative 70, but add to give the middle term, which is negative 3. Well, the numbers that multiply to give us negative 70 but add to give us negative 3 are negative 10 times 7, and then negative 10 plus 7 is negative 3. So let's go ahead and factor using both of these numbers, and let's factor this other fraction as well. So in the first fraction, I need to rewrite this with these numbers as the middle terms. So we're going to write 9x squared, and then we're going to put minus 6x plus 6x. This is the same as 0, but we're just putting it in a different way. And then we're going to put minus 4 over 5x squared, but instead of negative 3x, we're going to put negative 10x plus 7x. So minus 10x plus 7x minus 14 equals, times. And over here, 3x minus 6, we can go ahead and factor that as 3 parentheses x minus 2 over 3x minus 2 does not factor, so we're going to leave that alone. And now, in the first fraction, we're going to group the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms on both of these polynomials. And then we're going to factor each of those groups individually. So in the first group, I can factor a 3 and an x because 9 and negative 6 are both divisible by 3 and they both have an x. So we're going to factor out 3x times 9 divided by 3 is 3, x squared divided by x is x, minus 6 divided by 3 is 2, and then that's the end because we took out the x. Plus, over here, 6x minus 4, I can factor out a 2, and that's going to leave me with 3x minus 2 over, in the next group, 5x squared minus 10x, I can factor out a 5 and an x. That's going to leave me with x minus 2 plus 7x minus 14, I can factor out a 7, and that's going to leave me with x minus 2, times 3 parentheses x minus 2 over 3x minus 2. Now, notice I have the same factor here, 3x minus 2. So we're going to factor that out. We're going to say 3x minus 2, and then we're going to go ahead and cross it off here. We don't need it anymore. Now, our next factor is the remaining terms, 3x plus 2. So 3x plus 2, and now that's fully factored. These are the factors of 9x squared minus 4 over. My common factor here is x minus 2, so we're going to write that down. And the remaining factor, let's go ahead and cross that off. The remaining factor is 5x plus 7. 5x plus 7. Okay, times 3 times x minus 2 over 3x minus 2. Now notice everything is factored, and we can go ahead and reduce where necessary. So notice I have a 3x minus 2 in the numerator and a 3x minus 2 in the denominator. So they are both going to reduce to just 1. And then I have an x minus 2 that matches here as well, and they're both going to reduce to 1. And it doesn't look like anything else reduces. So we have 3x plus 2 over 5x plus 7 times, 3 times 1 is 3, over just 1. So now we can multiply across, and we're going to leave this factor. We're going to say 3 parentheses 3x plus 2 over 5x plus 7. And that is our product.